look at what a city is, like it's a fucking collection, like it's essentially a tumor on the surface of the earth. You look at the earth like a larger organism, look at the human body, you get a lump of cells in your fucking whatever. If a woman gets a lump of cells in her chest or whatever, you get a cancerous growth. You have a tumor that's growing on you. It's a lump of cells that all cease to play their role in the larger organism, overconsume resources, and make the whole organism sick and shut down the whole system. Look at what a city is. All these toxic, poisonous, shitty ideas come out of cities. I had that, like regarding the natives, right? Because like I live in front of I have this nice building, and there's like Atwater Park that's right in front of me, right? And it's always been this like hangout for homeless natives, which is really sad. And it's like their whole plight. And I mean, what happened with with the natives and the loss of them, the loss of their culture, and it just dawned on me because I was not long after that, I was in Pharmaprix and McDonald's, and at the post office at Pharmaprix and then McDonald's, and I was one of two out of like 15 white people, out of 15 people there, two white people. I was one of two, and I was like, holy fuck! When I was born in this country, it was like 90% white, So it's like it's a weird thing to just realize, like, holy shit, like this is the demographics here have changed so much. And it's like I'm thinking, oh god damn it keeps moving my fucking space. What like benefit is there to being white now? It's like, we're supposed to be like these oppressors and colonizers and whatever, and it's like it's only white countries that are taking these people in, because of like the meritocracy and the safety that we offer. It's like a place where there's upward mobility for people. So I mean, in the same way that the natives lost their culture and their genetic heritage, I mean, what's happening with white people in particular, because we're such because Western nations are so wealthy, we're essentially losing our culture and our genetic heritage, being taxed to the brink to provide financial safety nets to people who have no allegiance or appreciation for the culture of the people who are supporting their opportunities. So while we are going into debt and facing such levels of competition that even families with deep roots here, families that have been here for generations, have no generational wealth. And we're essentially competing against the very same people whose lives we are subsidizing, unable to own our own homes and struggling to put food on our table. And it's like, and we're the hated ones. It's like it's our tax dollars that are being I mean, we're being taxed at such rates. Like the cost of living has gone up so fucking much. It's like people are suffering here, and meanwhile, like all these tax dollars are being put into programs that are there to benefit people who come here who are only here for the financial opportunity. They don't want to be here for the culture. They don't actually appreciate it here, and it's like
It's almost as if taxation is theft, huh?
I mean, I have a pretty socialist. I don't believe in socialism like in government socialism. I believe in communities providing for one another out of their own volition. Like it's like people should care enough about one another that we're going to do good things for one another. So I think it's a cultural problem more than anything.
Well, I
If we
mean,
fix the
now,
culture,
if you live in a city, you don't know who lives next to you. You don't.
exactly. Why don't you already know what I think about cities? I think
But if
cities
you
are
live in a country, you know the guy who lives like a kilometer down the road because
well, that's what I'm saying.
it's the very
Like,
next house.
well, again, if you look at what a city is, like it's a fucking collection. Like it's essentially a tumor on the surface of the earth. You look at the earth like a larger organism, look at the human body, you get a lump of cells in your fucking whatever. If a woman gets a lump of cells in her chest or whatever, you get a cancerous growth. You have a tumor that's growing on you. It's a lump of cells that all cease to play their role in the larger organism, overconsume resources, and make the whole organism sick and shut down the whole system. Look at what a city is. All these toxic, poisonous, shitty ideas come out of cities. It's like people come to cities, everything is so easy that people just get to ruminate and get wrapped up in their own little bullshit. You're so close to all these people, but you can't know any of them. You can't really know any of them. Like you said, you live in a town, live in a township. It's like, your neighbor might be, he might be several hundred feet away. Whereas like I'm living in a fucking box with like, 500 other people. And some fucking concrete erection in the middle of a fucking tumor that I'm living in, and it's like it's all completely unnatural. It's just like um, not only do these bad ideas come out of cities, but also um, again, the overconsumption of resources, the complete imbalance with the ecosystem. It's like you have to destroy the ecosystem that supports the city. You need vast, amounts of farmland surrounding the city in order to even, in order to even sustain the population density that exists here. It's like it's not something that's natural. It's not something that's sustainable. And again, I think that more often than not, it produces sickness. And you look at what happens, like the types of culture that exist in big cities, it's very toxic culture. It's very much individualism. It's very much, it's a lot of luxury beliefs. It's a lot of people who live in such luxury that they're allowed to have, they're allowed to believe things that are completely at odds with what is healthy and good for the sustaining of the perpetuation of human civilization. It's just like none of these things are actually good for us.
It's like
Um,
it reminds me a bit of the missionaries who went to that island in New Guinea, and you're not
mm,
supposed to go approach them, and like they really wanted to go preach the word of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and they tried to go to the island. And of course, the people on the island shot them with their bows and arrows and spears, and just
was
murdered
it,
all
was it?
those
Well, I
people.
know. I know that there was
Like,
one of the Rothschilds, like
but
an actual descendant of one of
but
like
you
a.
get the point, right? Like you're like, no, we have to go and we have to help these people, but at the same time, the things you put in place to help them like
I
end
don't
up
think
biting you in
communities
the
like.
ass. Like,
Well, I don't think proper communities can exist in cities, and I think that that there are
well, what you end up with
as
is these little ghettoized areas where you have all the Iranian people here, you have all the Haitian people here, you have all the white people here, you have all the Spanish
and then
people
there's the
here.
downtown, which is like a big mix, and nobody knows anybody. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
exactly.
those little communities are like the better case scenario, but there's still kind of a separation. There's like a disconnect between those groups, and because they're in those communities. Like if, for example, when I first moved here to Montreal, I mean in like Côte d'Ivoire, kind of near Victoria, it was like all Filipinos, and it's like Filipinos and Indians, and it was like I was another. Like I mean, even back then I was an other. I mean, despite like the overall demographics of Canada being much whiter in general, I was still in an area that where I was like a minority. Um, but yeah, it's like you still end up with this otherness. You know what I mean? There's not really a sense of community or connection, and you can still find that, but it's like pretty much at church, and it's like. I don't know. Like, I like the idea of going to a church and like not worshiping, but like um, appreciating, being grateful, and kind of resonating on the higher values and virtues that I think a healthy society is built on, which I think there's a lot of overlap with people who are in church. But at the same time, there's a lot of like silly shit like calling God a he. Like he has plans. It's just like that just I mean, to me, God is nature. Like God is like like the cells in your body, report back to the amalgamation that is your consciousness. Like you have this consciousness over this agency over your body. When like if you stub your toe, the cells in your toe that are being damaged, the bones, whatever, the skin, all that stuff, like they're sending signals that you're receiving. I think like that we are kind of the cells. Our consciousness is kind of like the cells of the God consciousness, which again, that's kind of, I digress, that's like a little rabbit hole to go down. But I mean, those churches do provide that kind of sense of community, which doesn't have these boundaries on race, and like it is a culture in and of itself. Like if I go to church, I mean, it's mostly black and Filipino people, like the church that's in front of me here. I did want to kind of read through this. It is fucking spicy, like what this whole thing is. Oh, about the whole thing about being white. Like what actual advantage is there? Because like it's all the white countries that are, you know we're the colonizers, we're the whatever. But it's like, where did these humanitarian standards that the world operates by now come from? We were all playing this game of conquest and war. We were all living like fucking animals and whatever, for most of history. And like it was in the last, several hundred years, whatever, that a lot of these major changes that have become the humanitarian standards for the world today, a lot of these were implemented by countries, Western countries, that became the standard for the rest of the world. Like um, the Geneva Convention, like the all of these all these standards, that like, we don't. I mean, the social contract has existed for a long time, but it often hasn't been extended beyond the boundaries of your own community, right? Like the social contract existed among the people you depended upon to survive, the people who you hunted with, the people who you whatever. In Africa, in most of Southeast Asia, I mean, there's very few people. People are going there now for the economic opportunity because our dollar doesn't, our dollar doesn't go far enough now, and people are just be like, we can't afford the same standard of living. And it's like, I don't know if you've seen this, like a lot of Indians, there was like a bunch of the Indian doctors who were like telling Indians who were intending to come to Canada for a higher quality and for a higher standard of living, come to Canada. They're telling them not to come to Canada. They're like, no, don't come here. You can't afford it. Like, whatever, you're gonna work your fucking life away. And sure, there's like, there's some safety and there's like cool stuff, but it's not like it's like you won't be able to afford the same standard of living. And it's like they're saying it's better to stay in India.